CD Projekt Red refuses to face the reality that their studio has changed, and what made them who they were while they were creating the Witcher series and Cyberpunk 2077 has been lost during the process of their corporatization over the past few years. Little by little, bits of their identity and core values being stripped away. Of this, there is no doubt. It's perfectly visible in the way that they conduct themselves, and the writing is very much all over the wall, or rather, it's all over their website. The CEO, Mikhail Novakowski, seems to struggle with admitting this reality despite not having struggled at all with having brought it about alongside all the other higher-ups responsible for putting the studio on the path that it is now. They want so desperately to pass off an image of a studio that has not changed and has only become bigger and better at being and doing the exact same things that they've always done before. That's the vibe I get from the CEO every time that this topic comes up. It already happened once that I'm aware of back in October or so, shortly after I began making videos. I even covered it and dove into all the statements made on their website in regards to diversity and inclusion and the statements made on their video in regards to their commitment to ESG. And now it happened again after Novakowski made a post celebrating the fact that Witcher 3 will be 10 years old in May. And despite it having been so long, they still have 100 of the developers that made it working with them today, which was a post that did not go down very well at all with the community. People came into the comments to roast it, criticize it, or simply ask questions, some of which he answered until the questions started to get too uncomfortable, at which point he did the same thing that he did the last time, stopped replying and let the whole thing die down. I don't want to be hostile to Mr. Novakowski in this video. In many ways I empathize with the complicated spot that he is in, having to promote and protect the image of his company and all the workers in there, while also trying to relate to their past glories and use it as a promotion of sorts for their future. But I still have to address the elephant in the room, and be honest, even if he won't do it himself. And in order to do that, we're going to have to lay down some heavy facts that pertain to how CD Projekt Red has betrayed itself as a brand and us as fans. But more than that, facts that give their player base reasons to be concerned for the quality of their upcoming games as they lead their company down a dark path. So grab your medallions and your pseudo-endotrizine and let's get into it.
Think I got something better.
More than creators of really great games, another thing that CD Projekt Red became known for was their perfect sync with us, the customers. Up until the release of Cyberpunk 2077, they always strived to offer value, quality, and transparency to their players. Even with the state of Cyberpunk 2077 being what it was, they still launched it with a standard edition filled with physical goodies for a mere $60. Then, their commitment to fixing the game, add missing features and free DLC, plus introducing and overhauling gameplay systems, culminating in the release of Phantom Liberty, a fantastic expansion, made it so that they at least gained back some of the trust that they had lost. It may not ever be enough trust to ever pre-order a video game from them again, but it was at least enough trust to say that this company has not completely gone off the deep end, at least at the time. Now though, with these current problems, the jury's still out. And that is because CD Projekt Red is no longer the same company it used to be when they were creating the Witcher series and the bulk of Cyberpunk 2077. And I don't even mean it in a physical manner, like I'm not talking about the fact that a great deal of their top talent from lead positions in the making of these games has either left the company or gotten laid off. It's normal after all for there to be some developers cycling in and out of studios. It's still an important factor, don't get me wrong, and it's one where the CEO absolutely refuses to face reality into, when he says 100 developers remain out of 200 plus, and when he says that the main story director is the same since Witcher 1, and refuses the statement that they haven't lost the prime meat from the bone, as in the main talent that made those games what they were, such as top writers, artists, and even the directors themselves. He looks more like he's coping in denial instead of trying to validate the concerns and telling people precisely why it is that they shouldn't be concerned about it. Like, for example, if they hired just as competent writers, artists, directors, etc. to replace those older ones that left, then just say so, just as an example. Instead of just being in denial and being like, no, we still have, John. John? He's a great guy. But what I mean when I say that this no longer is the same company, I'm talking about their hearts no longer being in the same place. Their values as a company have drastically changed in the past couple of years, as they have adopted many of the detrimental policies, initiatives, and mentalities that other declining companies within the industry have dedicated themselves supposed to, such as Ubisoft, Square Enix, EA, Xbox Game Studios, and even Sony. But with CD Projekt Red, the shock value is much greater. After all, these are companies that CD Projekt themselves would criticize back when they were in tune with us. Their entire brand was very dedicated towards being pro-gamer, in that when the industry was chasing the trend of military shooters, they stuck to what they believed people really wanted. When the industry chased predatory monetization, kicking their games with microtransactions and loot boxes, they didn't, and they even spoke out against them and the publishers that went down that road. When the industry chased live services while trying to manipulate the narrative that single-player games were dead, they remained committed to making and singing the praises of single-player games, and they carried on trying to offer us value for our buck. I'm sure that with some of these things, CD Projekt Red hasn't changed. For example, Witcher 4 and Project Orion, as far as we know, remain big-budget single-player games without monetization or online nonsense. However, when the industry started to chase the DEI and ESG trend to kick their studios and games with socio-political nonsense that does nothing to add to game quality, in fact, it actively takes away from it because it employs DEI hiring that cares more about someone's race, gender, or sexuality rather than their talent, skill, experience, and competence, and also employs creative restrictions such as these in order to make sure that the content that is being made is safe from any potential non-issues, such as stereotypes, attractive female characters, misrepresentation of cultures, inappropriate gratification, or lack of diversity, etc. You know, stuff that would only be problematic to overly sensitive morons that can't separate reality from fiction, literal Karens that don't even play video games and simply want to usurp them and use them to push their personal values, virtue signaling, and politics out onto the mainstream. Sorry guys, I got a bit sidetracked there. So when the industry started pushing for all of this stuff, just so that they could profit off of shady grants and investment boons from companies like BlackRock that are directly related to how much of the agenda and the message you force onto your products and workplace, CD Projekt Red went right in after them and has been very dedicated to it. So if you want a deeper dive into what CD Projekt Red has all over their diversity and inclusion page, you can check out my video on it from a couple of months ago. For this instance here, I'm just going to show off a couple of things just to point out the fact of how so much of their language in this page is all about trying to manipulate people into giving undue credit and importance to DEI. It reaches the point of full-blown cringe, honestly, because every goddamn sentence has to have some lavish, meaningless sentence caked with buzzwords fit to place diversity and inclusion and other soft language bullshit at the apex of what is needed to create a truly amazing video game. Let's have a look.
I don't like words that hide the truth. I don't like words that conceal reality. I don't like euphemisms or euphemistic language.
Our purpose is to create revolutionary role-playing games with memorable stories that inspire gamers. We can only deliver on these goals and promises with an amazing, passionate team whose talent and professional skills reflect the breadth of the experience in the world. False and vague for the purposes of manipulation. At face value, you can read this and agree because a diverse team reflecting different experiences in a literal term does not have anything to do with race, gender, and sexuality. It has more so to do with people of different backgrounds, different skills, different passions, different life experiences growing up, etc., coming together and being able to brainstorm a wider range of ideas than a team of clones, for example, who all share most of the same perspectives and ideas. So in other words, if I grew up watching Dragon Ball and One Piece, and you grew up watching Studio Ghibli movies and slice of life anime, if I grew up in a household with a lot of conflict and you grew up in a household with a tight-knit family, if I had brothers and sisters and you were an only child, etc., you and me are likely going to provide a wider spectrum of ideas and perspectives to contribute towards the work we're doing than if we were working with people who shared the exact same experiences. And this has nothing to do with race, gender, and sexuality. And for specific matters to do with actual racial issues, where your scope is limited, there's actual consultants to hire. So for example, for Cyberpunk 2077, CD Projekt Red didn't know anything about Haitian people, language, and culture, so they hired consultants to make sure that the Voodoo Boys faction would be authentic. That and other more culturally driven things, like how to represent certain religions accurately or whatever, are the only cases where this this makes sense, and it is wholly dependent on the setting of the game being worked on. And there's already solutions. Like I said, you hire proper consultants to take care of it. You don't need a and diversity quota, making sure that you have a wide range of people, cultures, sexualities, and genders to respectfully represent and make them feel seen in your video games. What you need is a competent, passionate team of developers who remain focused on what they're making. But anyway, that was the long answer. Here's the short one. None of this bullshit was present when creating The Witcher 3, which means that it wasn't necessary. So yeah, false. A diverse and inclusive work environment boosts creativity and innovation, which is exactly what we need in order to push the limits of technology and storytelling. False as well. None of this has anything to do with diversity and inclusivity. This is like saying that you need a diverse and inclusive work environment to cook a delicious meal. You don't. You just need a cook that knows how to cook and the ingredients to cook with. Again, Witcher 3 and even Cyberpunk 2077, despite its issues, both successfully made without this ideology. But anyway, let's continue. Our mission is to create revolutionary games for players around the world, and this is why we need to empower the potential of our teams. A diversity of perspectives unlocks creativity and increases innovation. What are you talking about, dude? Like what are you saying? You sound insane. False and completely unsubstantiated. Again, this blatant push for this shit without a single shred of evidence. In fact, if we look at recent failures of games made with this kind of mentality in mind, and in practice, all we have is evidence of the contrary being true. Go ask Ubisoft and BioWare and Firewalk Studios if diversity and inclusion to unlock the creative process and the technologies was enough to fucking get them to make a good game.
Fucking hell, that stinks.
They continue. Diverse teams. The potential that can be unlocked through diversity strengthens our games, communities, and teams. Openness to everyone's backgrounds creates more meaningful collaborations and ideas. Does it really? Is this really important? Because it just sounds like more unsubstantiated, preachy, meaningless nonsense to me, but anyway. Inclusive leaders. Our diversity fuels us to create an inclusive environment where authentic leaders have the skills to listen to every person, overcoming unconscious biases in decision-making processes. Inclusion fosters the growth and resilience of our teams, who feel empowered by leaders to take risks and boldly present different points of view. Oh my god, just look at how hard and desperately they want to push this narrative, how hard they're trying to fucking sell you on the importance of this, as if it was this super secret ingredient to success. CD Projekt Red found the holy grail of game development. This sounds like cult language. This sounds like I just walked into a weird cultist ritual or some shit in the middle of the woods.
I'm telling you, some of this language makes me want to vomit.
Meanwhile, all that this word salad managed to actually say is that they're running a spineless studio where there's no strong visionary in charge with a clear idea of what the game should be, and then a focused team behind them trying their best to make it happen. Instead, it just sounds like a big McDonald's playground where everyone is meant to have their say in the ball pit, where some schmuck who has no vision whatsoever has to have their opinion hold as much value as the directors because apparently inclusion fosters growth and resilience, and then they feel empowered or whatever, which in and of itself is also a ridiculous thing to read. Like, excuse me, but are you a adult in a workplace or a child who needs someone to come to them and pamper them in order to speak up? Like, again, I am sorry, I don't mean to be hostile, but I'm just reading their words and these words are nonsense. Equitable processes, because of course equity is such a wonderful thing, isn't it? Through equity, everyone shall feel safe and respected. Everyone shall have equal development opportunities, which will then fuel them to use their skills and talents to create the best games in the world. Here's the deal, big dog. Feeling safe comes from having security at the door. This is already giving me PTSD flashbacks to BioWare's version of feeling safe. Game developers also need to feel safe in what they do, which ultimately means being able to see themselves reflected in their work. Oh my god, this is so f***ing embarrassing, dude. Oh my god, what the f***? are you talking about? Holy shit, this is the most embarrassing thing I ever read. How did this pass? How did this get approved? Why would Karine allow this garbage to be posted? It's just making everyone in this new BioWare team look like a f***ing pussy. I mean, what the hell are you on about? Feeling safe? What are you f***ing working at an oil rig or something? What are you f***ing fishing in the Arctic? What are you f***ing cleaning the windows on the Burj Khalifa? Huh? Well, what are you doing? Serving your country in a war zone or something? What's going on over at BioWare? You don't got security at the door? What's going on? Is the floor slippery or something? What is this? Where's the studio located at? Fucking Mordor? And the willingness to use their skills and talents should come from within. You're either doing your job or you're not, and if you're not, then you shouldn't be working there, period. This is the problem with this kind of dumb shit. You're not meant to actually read and analyze these words themselves. You're meant to simply see the power positive buzzwords and clap like a seal because #progressive. If you actually read this slop, you come away with nothing. It's just manipulative language that they use to bullshit themselves and us as well.
A diversity of perspectives unlocks creativity and increases innovation.
Somebody should have gotten an award for that one. It reminds me of what the Diversity and Inclusion VP at Ubisoft said, and I quote, "As an early employee, I was noticing that there seemed to be an archetype of what good talent looked and sounded like. I myself didn't fit that archetype, so when I joined Uber's talent team, it was with the goal of challenging that norm and broadening our definition of talent." This is on Ubisoft's website, by the way. I know she was talking about Uber, but it was just in relation to where she came from and the work that she does at Ubisoft. Basically, if you don't meet certain standards, such as talent, just declare them as racist or sexist or whatever, and redefine the very word and concept into something else. Then everyone around you into accepting it. Too bad it isn't reflective in the sales though. I'm gonna stop reading here because you get the idea. This page is just garbage like this the whole way down. All of the stuff present in their equity part of the page down below bogs down to this last point here. We are strongly committed to promoting social change and being an example of it. And therein lies the conclusion of the major issue of their corporatization. They didn't expand their studio into this company in order to be able to make even more and better games. They did it and invited all manner of socio-political bullshit to impact social change. Now, here's the deal, fellas. If you want to impact social change and your heart is in the right place, you actually want to do it genuinely, then that's admirable. Like, if you're the owner of a big restaurant chain and you want to impact social change by trying to feed the homeless, that's lovely, for example. If you have a lot of money or you have a business that is compatible with this kind of thing and you want to do it, then go for it. If you, in your own private life, try to be the best person that you can and do a good turn every once in a while, then that's great too. But for a game development studio, realistically, how are they going to impact social change? Well, there's only one avenue that makes it worth it. Obviously, there's many little things that they can do, like for example, recycling and shit, but we all know that that's not what they mean. What they mean is that they're going to have to ham-fist it into their games, both directly through creative restrictions and quotas, like the list from before, and indirectly through the staff composing the very studio and the initiatives and policies within. And that's going to impact the quality of your product, and it's going to make people not care about your product. It's just like the restaurant example. If for some reason the restaurant owner who wants to impact social change starts to do really stupid decisions that affect the quality of the food in his restaurant, then people are going to stop going there, and that's the damn problem of letting game companies fall down this rabbit hole. The priority when creating their games is no longer what is it that our players want or how can I make the best product possible. Suddenly, this new intrusive goal is shoved in. How can I inject contentious contemporary nonsense in order to impact social change in this extremely divisive time that we're going through? And then the solutions to those questions are never good. That's when those creative restrictions and requirements like that list come in. And of course, another answer to these kinds of problems is usually to hire a consultant company like Sweet Baby Inc. to come in and up their to come in and help them make their games more diverse and inclusive. In the CEO's post, someone brought up Sweet Baby Inc. and Nowakowski said that they aren't working with them and have never worked with them in the past. He also said that he has never heard of them before up until recently, which sounds a bit fishy, but in any case, this comment obviously didn't go down well. In a post with loads of replies already, this specific comment, just this comment alone, got hundreds more as people called out both all all of this DEI nonsense on the website, as well as them hiring Mary Kenny, who either worked for or worked with Sweet Baby Inc. By her own words, she is an activist who wants to push every lever when it comes to LGBTQIA+ representation. And to make matters worse, she also staunchly defends Sweet Baby Inc., going as far as to having written a full thread on Twitter about how they work, which also included a lot of misinformation. If you know Sweet Baby Inc., then you know they more than exposed themselves and their intentions over time. Intentions which clearly paint a different picture than Mary Kenny's version in regards to them just being these innocent little narrative consultants who come in and help projects whenever something is missing. And as if she wasn't enough of a bad decision when it comes to hiring people for a studio that's meant to be making the top RPGs in the industry, they also hired another activist type. You've surely heard of this guy before already, Kian Maher. Or Kian Maher, I don't fucking know, guys. Anyway, he's the one who said that he'd like to punch his customer base. Which actually is not surprising at all, because his work history reveals that he's a game journalist who wrote for all of these lovely outlets including IGN, Kotaku, The Gamer, Polygon, etc., who spent the last few years demonizing gamers and feeding into this toxic climate in the industry right now. So basically, a Sweet Baby Inc. supporting activist as a senior writer and a game journalist as a franchise and lore designer. I see the DEI hiring is working beautifully over there at CD Projekt Red. If this is the kind of people that they've been hiring to replace all of that vital talent that left to form their own studios, such as Rebel Wolves, or who left to join other teams like Warhorse, then this company is truly well fucked. The truth is that CD Projekt Red has never worked with Sweet Baby Inc. because they never had to, because they practically built their own DEI consultancy in-house. Once upon a time, not that long ago, CD Projekt Red would have been one of the companies standing up to DEI and all the activists that it brings with its own programs and initiatives, much like they did back then when they stood up to price increases, predatory monetization like loot boxes and microtransactions, and the habit of companies like EA playing dumb to the demands of the market. Today though, CD Projekt Red is standing right next to those very same companies, going down the very same destructive roads in opposition to us. That not only spells trouble to the games themselves, but it also spells trouble when it comes to just the way that we would support the games. You understand what I'm saying? Like, let's say that there's a guy making the best fucking lemonade that you've ever drank, but every time that he makes one lemonade, he kicks a homeless man in the balls.
That's some funny stuff right there.
Do I want to continue buying the lemonade if this guy is going out there and kicking homeless people in the nuts?
Prick! Here go all day! I'm gonna make you a truck, you prick! Here comes your pound! Oh, Daddy!
I don't know if I want to support that business anymore. You know, like, it may be the best damn lemonade that I've ever had, but do I want this system to continue? Do I want him to continue kicking people in the nuts? I don't think I do. And it's kind of the same situation with buying video games from companies with this type of fucking program. So for this one, I really do urge you guys to check out my other video, because I broke it down with clips and I really don't want to redo it here, as I would add nothing new to the conversation. I'll sum it up quickly here, but if you're interested in the details, feel free to check it out. The link will be in the description and in the top comment. Basically, CD Projekt Red made a video on their commitment to ESG, and I found it very inappropriate, if not downright problematic, because we all know that Witcher 3, for example, was not made with any of this DEI nonsense in mind. None of these ideologies per se. This wasn't a thing at the time, and we all know what their mindset was back then. To make the best MRPG they could. No bullshit commitments to social change or to tackle important society subjects. All there was a passionate team making the best damn work that they could, which led to over 200 Game of the Year awards during a time where they actually meant something. Anyway, in their video they try to retroactively apply the values of DEI and social change to the success of their previous games. developers, pretending as if they were incredibly conscious of social issues when making these games. For Witcher 3, for example, the dude says that they tackle domestic violence and stuff like strained family relationships and discrimination, when in reality they didn't tackle a goddamn thing. They depicted it and they wrote fantastic stories and characters without worrying about offending anyone with sensitive topics. They just went back, looked at their content and made up some random bullshit to try and apply it to their newfound values. When you tackle issues with the mentality of impacting social change, you bring in a very limiting lens that is going to prevent you from actually writing interesting stories and characters, and also take into account player choice because it sets limits and boundaries as to how far it can go, as to what can be shown without causing offense, and as to what the outcomes can appropriately be. The message itself that you're trying to send is what is most important, rather than the depiction of a realistic situation or of an interesting story. If something can be misconstrued as problematic or offensive or anything along those lines by people who take offense at literally everything, then it's not going to be put in the game. And as if all the things discussed so far weren't enough already, there's sadly more, and in my opinion the most important part of it all, and the one element that shows just how far gone this studio actually is. As if the Commitment to ESG video wasn't enough with a demonstration of a disgusting show of disrespect for their previous work, as well as to our intelligence by pretending as if this has always been there since the very beginning, even in the making of our favorite games from them, and as if their decline into diversity and inclusion wasn't enough either, with all the manipulative language and total bull in the website which tries to attribute great value to DEI, something that not only continues presenting itself as prejudicial to this industry, producing flop after flop after flop, but that is also inherently discriminatory in nature, and as if the CEO's comments on social media weren't enough either, with this tone-deaf approach to pretending as if all the incredibly talented people that left the studio don't really matter, despite that including the very game directors of Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk, as well as other lead developers, and as if the hiring of activists and game journalists to high positions wasn't enough either, then don't worry, because CD Projekt Red decided to go down the road of actual, literal, gender-based discrimination in their program Girls in the Game, where they detail how they created this program to give high school girls the golden opportunity of learning about the game industry, get hands-on experience creating games, and even receive financial support to cover the cost of additional classes, training, and even hardware if it comes to it, along with mentorship from developers from CD Projekt Red. Meanwhile, if you're a high school boy, you get to go f*** yourself. Because this is how it is when you go so deep down the ideological road that you start engaging in actual illegal discrimination that is only regarded as legal because the West has been gradually losing its f***ing mind over the past decade, using terms and creating policies like DEI in order to justify that discrimination. The funnier part of all of this is that if you check the bottom of the page, you can see this part right here saying, "We are among the companies that signed the Diversity Charter, Karta Roznorodnishi, a document committing to non-discrimination in the workplace, as well as to the introduction of policies that create and promote diversity. We were also listed as one of the top employers in Poland in terms of managing diversity and inclusion." They have the massive balls of granite to tell people that they signed a document committing to non-discrimination in the workplace while simultaneously introducing a program that literally promotes discrimination. There's only one other company that I heard of doing the exact same thing, and it's Ubisoft, who created a similar program exclusive only to women and non-binary people. Ubisoft. This is a damn company that CD Projekt Red has chosen to channel as they began their corporatization. But then they don't understand why people are concerned with the future of their games. They don't understand why people have turned so sour at the sight of their like celebrating, "Ooh, we have 100 developers from The Witcher 3. Please ignore all the other bullshit that we have got up to in the past few years. Please ignore the people that we are hiring. Please ignore the people that have left. Please focus only on The Witcher 3. Remember how good it was, The Witcher 3? Yes? Please remember Geralt? Please guys, we are still the same company." Please ignore all the blatant, hypocritical discrimination and agenda pushing that we're doing. Please ignore it, guys. You f***ing idiot. You can't say that you're not doing discrimination when you're doing forced diversity. Forced diversity is discriminatory. If you're not f***ing seen the definition of discrimination? The unjust or prejudicial treatment of different categories of people, especially on ethnicity, age, sex, or disability. If you've got a quota on your hand, a diversity quota on your hand that you need to meet, which in order to do so requires you to fire people or hire people based on discriminating them on their ethnicity, age, sex, or disability, you are engaging in discrimination.
These poor people have been bullshitted by the system into believing that if you change the name of the condition, somehow you'll change the condition. Well, hey, cousin, doesn't happen.
Like I said, I didn't want to be negative, I didn't want to be hostile, but what are you doing? What are you guys doing? Here's everything that the diversity and inclusion page should say. We here at CD Projekt Red do not discriminate on our hiring. Our workplace is open to anyone with the passion and skill necessary to join our team and fit in with our values. That's it. And then you should only interview and hire people without ideological bias. Same with that program for getting people into game development. It should be for all the people interested, not just for women. If it just so happened that the majority of people signing up would be men because of the fact that action RPGs usually have more male players than female players, then let it happen. Let people have their natural interests. Let people choose what they like to do. Let these industries form themselves naturally instead of forcing things for an ideology. I can only hope that this company hasn't completely driven itself off a cliff, but I'm not holding my breath. It's just so much, all at once, everywhere, or whatever the the movie title was. They really have taken a deep dive and completely changed their core values. They simply aren't the same company. They may have some of the same people, and they may still have very talented people working there. I'm not saying that they don't, but the core values, the things that made them special, reliable, and exciting is completely gone or corrupted by so much of this nonsense. And I just wish the CEO would stop running away from it and face reality, because every time he doesn't, this kind of thing happens where people call him out, and I do admire that he at least, gets in there and in the middle and replies to people, especially because so far it seems that he replies respectfully instead of acting like a like so many of the other developers from other studios that we've seen recently. But then at some point he hits a metaphorical wall. Someone brings up Kian Maher or Mary Kenny or the DEI page or whatever, the ESG, and he just disappears. The dude just dissipates like smoke, never to be seen again until the next time that he makes another post trying to relate his company that he's been driving in the direction of a cliff to the base studio that made all of those games happen. And then of course the process begins again. People come in, they question things, he replies, he's like, no, we are everything good, and then somebody is like, what about DI, what about Mary Kenny, what about this guy, and he fucking disappears again. This guy isn't actually going to engage with the real meat of this conversation and address the massive elephant in the room that is the ESG video and the metric shit tons of DEI in their website and some of the other questionable choices that he may as well not engage with people at all. Anyway, this video. It took me forever to write the script. I kept going off on tangents about stuff that I already talked about in previous videos. I kept going on rants about discrimination and DEI, which would just end up coming across as too hostile, and I didn't want that because I genuinely do somewhat empathize with this guy's position. Like I said, he has a job to do and an image to present. It's like, I obviously don't expect any answers out of him that actually talk about this, like for real, but that is such an annoying concept, because if you as a CEO or whatever else can't properly defend your choice to kick your company in DEI when we clearly see what it's doing to other studios, then if you can't defend your decision to do that, if you can't come up with your own narrative as to how you are going to be different than the other people, then why the go into it in the first place? Anyway, yeah, never mind, I'm just going to cut this here. Thanks for watching, please hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more sauce in the future, and leave me your thoughts in the comments. Have yourselves a good day and I'll see you on the next one.